Hi, I'm Mike Coyle, and you're watching Insidexploration. Today I'm here with Enrico de Cesare, the head of research and development for StGeorges Eco Mining and the CEO of EVSX. You can find their ticker symbol on the CSE under SX or the OTC under SXOOF. Enrico, thanks for taking the time out of your day to join me again.
It's a pleasure, Mike. Did you manage to get out to PDAC a bit?
I did. I was there for a couple of days. I made my rounds, talked to a few people. You?
I did. I spent 2 days there. So nice to be back in away from the craziness of PDAC, but looks like the world has come back to normal, so that's good.
I guess the big question is, yeah, the amount of people that were there was fantastic this year. I guess the big question is, was it a productive couple of days at PDAC?
Yeah, I mean, look, the real work gets done away from that, but it's nice to mingle and with people with like-minded or focused with the same types of things.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know that, since our interview at the year end, there was a lot of questions I had for you that you couldn't really delve into because you hadn't filed your patents yet. So now that you've got your patents filed, I want to delve into the technology a little bit. But Enrico, you're on record saying that you have a solution for North America to refine the lithium down to lithium hydroxide. Now, for people to really grasp that, I think it's important to give a little bit of background on it. So can you do me a favor and give us some background to the history of, some of the MET processes that have been used over the years and maybe that aren't kind of the best thing to be using?
Yeah, so I'm going to be careful because people have done good work with what they were doing, right? And one solution doesn't fit all, but in general, what we've developed with hard rock resources, I believe unlocks them and brings them closer to what everybody knows with Chile and Argentina, the brines that were the main suppliers of lithium to the world from a low cost production point of view. There's so many things that get confusing when you hear these things. People tell you about the leach. That's just one piece, right? I got it in solution. Great. I made the product. Great. What happened in between? Right. And then that's where things fall apart depending on the process. Most of what was done in Quebec was based on the sulfuric acid. And in fairness, that was probably the right solution if you only had two acids to choose from, be it hydrochloric or sulfuric. Sulfuric is more efficient for spodumene type resources. We approached it differently. We wanted to be as selective as possible during the leach. And we also developed a very compact process. So we went outside the box, took some time. R&D is not an exact science. So anybody that wanted results for yesterday, we're here now, but yesterday wasn't doable yet.
Okay,
So
can I interject here? Why is it that sulfuric acid doesn't work well, or has some challenges? What are the challenges behind it?
Okay, I'll say it differently. It's sulfuric acid is a good aggressive acid, but it'll digest a lot of different things, including iron and other elements. What we decided to focus on was, can we reduce what I call the non-self metals? That's not the scientific term. It's alkaline metals, but the non-self metals, not put them in solution. If you do that, then you've already eliminated part of the purification steps. The other part of it is that what do you do with all these elements that come into solution if you were using sulfuric acid? Okay, well, you got to purify. How much waste streams do you have? And at the end, what was your cost? Because if you're losing a molecule of acid, or you took a molecule of acid that was dirty and you put something in to neutralize it, to dispose of it in landfill, just me saying that out loud doesn't take a genius to figure out you just lost the acid. You just lost the molecule to also neutralize it, and you also lost money for landfill. So as a rule of thumb, I think a lot of people don't know this, but typically, if you put 100,000 tons in, you might have 300,000 tons to dispose of in landfill with most sulfuric acid processes. And anywhere that you have sulfuric acid, you will see landfilling in a continuous basis. I don't want to mention names, but anybody who wants to do that and talk to me about it, I can send you to locations and you'll see it constantly going out. There's one place in Quebec, there's a slurry pipeline coming out, and they're putting topsoil in the summer as it goes and gets filled out and planting grass, and it's constant, and it's this mountain that is propagating. So that is one of the background problems with sulfuric acid, but that's not the only thing. I mean, it works for a lot of processes. And generally, if you're using sulfate or sulfur-based minerals, that's what you're using, right? So if you were saying nickel sulfate, or you were saying copper sulfates, zinc, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that's what you're going to be using. Does that necessarily make it right for spodumene? And we believe no, and we believe we've made a more compact and economic process for a few reasons. One, will we have chemicals lost? Yes, but if you can sell them instead of landfilling them, now you're ahead of the game. If you can make the process more compact, you're also ahead of the game. So we start with a selective leach, less problems going into the system. We render it a lot more compact and concentrated, and it stays that way right through. Whereas most people, the leach becomes like, if you say liquid-liquid separation, there's a number of ways to do that. You can have a resin. That's what brines do. You take the solution after it's evaporated in the air over time, and then that goes through a resin, which loads up on the lithium. Then you put a different solution in at a different pH to take it out. Okay. In brines, that's beautiful because the chlorides are already there. When you're doing that with sulfuric acid, you're adding acid. So every molecule lost is a cost. So it's a bigger impact than if you didn't have to pay for the acid or the chlorine, like in a brine. But you have to pay for your resins. You still have all these other steps of purification. When they talk about another way of doing liquid-liquid separation is organics. You know, just think of it as oil and water or oil and vinegar when you do your salad. No matter how much you shake it, the oil will always float to the top. But think of it as an oil that just picks up one of the elements like lithium, or one of the elements if you're doing nickel, etc. But every time you take an element out, you have an extra cup, 3 cups, 4 cups, or the equivalent of 2 tanks, 3 tanks, 4 tanks, right? And that all has to come back to one. So all things have a place in the industry. Was it the right place with lithium and spodumene? So we believe that we have a better option, more compact, and we avoid all of those buildups of what I call water acid balances that have to be brought back to the starting point. So in the circle, we don't necessarily have to do that. We go through, we recover, we send it back, but it doesn't become bigger. And then you end up at the end, and we end up with lithium hydroxide and fertilizer. A little simple, but a lot more economic because we have a chance to recover the acid units. Now, the other part of that, people can do an argument and say sulfuric acid costs X and your acid costs Y. It's a little bit more expensive, so, you know, sulfuric acid is a better option. Well, that doesn't necessarily hold, because if you're losing it, it's a cost. If you're not losing it and able to sell it, you're actually a lower cost, even if the unit cost was higher to start with. The other part of it is you can't be green if you have a waste. So if you can't sell it, number one, you can't be a low-cost producer, and number two, you're not green. If you have a landfill, you can't be green. So those are the little things that And it gets confusing because you got CO2, which everybody's talking about. You got landfill, and it gets confusing. I get it. Everybody can be lost in that. But just think of it. CO2 is a bad word these days. Landfill is a bad word. Chemicals is a bad word. So if you can avoid and reduce all of them, then you're ahead of the game.
So your process has worked at a lab scale. You say you can recover 92% of your acid. I was going to get into all the really finite details of this with you, but you kind of covered a lot of it on me right there, which is fine. But you can recuperate 92% of your acid. So the rest of it, as I understand, is going into a fertilizer waste product. Well, not waste product, a fertilizer product. And what doesn't make it into that can then be sold to the cement and the asphalt industry, correct?
Yeah, depending what we're talking about, correct. But so when you put in what you call spodumene, a lot of people don't know this, but spodumene, obviously we're focused on the lithium, right? But what's the rest of it? It's mainly alumina and silica. So what do you do with it after you've taken the lithium out? So you have a lot of it going to, it could go to what everybody sees in the street when they're making the street for you. That could be part of the mix of asphalt when they take the tars and things that they blend it to make your street, right? The other part of it is because the way spodumene chemical formula is, for every lithium molecule, you have one aluminum molecule attached to it. Yes, you have a bunch of other stuff, but forget all the other stuff that doesn't go into solution. I cannot avoid putting one alumina in the solution for every lithium.
It's a good
and we
problem to
recover
have.
that. Well, in this case, it turns out that way. Sometimes it could be costly. In our case, we make high purity alumina, Al2O3, if someone wants to look it up, and that goes to specific markets. Could it go to an aluminum smelter? The answer is yes. But when you have high purity alumina, why would you do that when it can go to other markets? Okay, so that is one of the byproducts. Check, saleable. And then your waste stream, well, you took it out of the ground, you moved it somewhere, and you can send it to asphalt. Check. And now no landfill. Check. You're green. And it's that simple.
Okay. So you've got this super amazing, like 5-minute leach, no added heat, no added pressure. You can recuperate 92% of your acid and reuse it and continuously reuse it. So you're saving a huge amount of money on shipping and adding acid constantly. But you had some kind of, well, let's wait for the breakthrough, but you're able to process the lithium right to lithium hydroxide. And you say in one step, essentially, it's not one step, but in one step, all part of the same cycle. Now, why is this new? I mean, people have been working on this forever, and we're sending our concentrates abroad right now to have them refined and sold back to us. I don't understand. How is it Enrico de Cesare has come up with the solution to do this here at home? What is the breakthrough, if you can talk
Yeah,
about
I'll say it differently. I mean, most of the people working on these processes are doctorates and things, and they're all brighter than myself, for example. The only thing I do is I just apply fundamentals. I take a step back and I relook at them. But if I forced Mike or Enrico into one lab with the equipment in that lab, and you started down one path, you're going to work your ass off with what you had. You're going to try things, but limited to that. What we did differently was we didn't put our own lab. We looked at a number of labs, and any piece that needed to be done somewhere else, we did it somewhere else. There was two reasons for that. One, not to get caught in the box, because you just spent X million dollars on equipment. You're going to work your ass off to make it work, because you have to, all your boss is going to say is, I just gave you this, make it work. In our case, we didn't have that. And if there was a piece missing, it doesn't matter if it was Mike doing it. Okay, let's send it to so-and-so. And then they work on that piece, and we brought it back. So we weren't stuck in a box. We were able to be creative and just apply fundamentals. And the development that we're pretty excited by was actually not, we started the path, but we didn't do the final piece that came from the lab. So that was, and it started with a concentrated and it goes right through. The beautiful part is some people listened to or watched a video of crystals growing. What does that mean? You know, honestly, a lot of people say it's cool, but what does it really mean? The reason is you're starting with a saturated solution. I just drop a few crystals of lithium hydroxide in. They grow. I don't like the purity. After I filter it, I put the exact same amount of water again, drop a few crystals in, which is going to come from your own process, and that starts the crystals growing again. No more chemical losses. And then when you get the right purity, we're done.
So hold on. So you're telling me you're going right straight through the metallurgical process, and at the end, when you're left with your lithium in solution, you're taking it straight from that solution and growing it into lithium hydroxide crystals.
Correct. Without energy.
I don't even know what to say to that. That's brilliant. I love it. Okay. There's more to this. Obviously, there's some technicals involved in this, and I'm sure that's going to be covered in your patent. So congratulations, I guess, would be in order. That's pretty awesome. So we've talked about the spodumene processing, the lithium. I think this is phenomenal, but you know, this all ties in with everything else. So let's talk about the battery processing. You know, these units that you have on order, to be clear, they're your front end units for black mass production. First and foremost, where are you putting these things? Where's everything going? How are you rolling this out?
Okay, so we picked a location that had access to technical people and all the infrastructure. Again, de-risk, de-risk, de-risk. That we like it or not, batteries is people. Okay, the more people you have, the more consumers you have. That means the more batteries you can collect. Southern Ontario is where the largest population of Canada is. So being there is important and strategic for us. It has nothing to do with liking one place or another. Quebec is going to have its place too. What we did was took a step back and re-looked at all the batteries. So when you hear news, everybody talks about whatever they're focused on, not what they're leaving behind. And 80% of the batteries collected in Canada are alkaline batteries. So we came up with a strategy for alkaline. Lithium iron phosphate batteries are a small percentage of what's left of the 20%. And there's nickel, cadmium, there's a bunch of others. What people have in their computer is a nickel, cobalt, manganese type battery. It doesn't matter if you're in Italy or in Canada or somewhere else in the world. You know, that's what the battery is, okay? So we decided to come up with a strategy for each type of battery. So first you have to prep it properly. So you do the sorting, then you're doing, what are you going to do with each one of these batteries, okay? And then is it hydrometallurgy or pyrometallurgy? Is there more options to hydro, more than one? So what we decided to do is not try to fit everything into one type of battery, but fit the solutions to the batteries and also the resources. So I'm glad we started with spodumene. So for example, the lithium iron phosphate battery, which is the most popular one after alkaline in our households, which is the rechargeable AA, AAAs that we have. Those, and also what everybody's hearing about in the car industry, can also be processed with the same process as spodumene. So we could actually send the black mass after the battery prep station for lithium iron phosphate to the same unit for the resources that we're trying to process in Canada and elsewhere in the world.
So you could effectively throw in your black mass from these batteries right into the spodumene concentrate and come up with the same effect?
It's the same process for that specific type, right? So you can see how even if we batched it, doesn't matter. What it is it renders things a lot more concise and productive without us having multiple places, one for resource, one for batteries. So that works. We did the same thing with, you know, those who follow StGeorges will know that we talk about nickel often. Well, we've got nickel resources. Can we process them the same way we're doing with nickel batteries? Well, coincidentally, yes. So now again, you've linked one type of battery with a resource. Strategic for us because we need that. strategic for Canada that we have all these resources and around the world, trying to unlock spodumene resources in a green way. And that was the strategy. For example, we're going to treat your computer battery when it's wasted differently because nickel, cobalt, manganese will approach it with a different hydrometallurgical process, which includes the option from Italy that we've been talking with. So we didn't rely only on our ideas. We relied on what is best for each streamline. We didn't get caught up that it had to be an invention that we did. We got caught up with prep the battery efficiently, process each one appropriately. Does it have any strategic fits with anything else we're up to? So resources and nickel resources, and we link them that way.
Well, your resources are an insurance to the battery recycling, really, or vice versa. You can look at it either which way. They seem to complement one another quite nicely, which is great. You mentioned Arabat. Let's kind of go there just for a second. So you're going to hopefully test out their theories and their ideas at some point. That negotiation or that arrangement
that's
is still
that's all planned. So what we've done is before moving all our equipment that was the pilot plant to Thorold, we left precipitation equipment at our main R&D center to do Arabat's, what I call pilot runs and optimization. So that's in the works. So just so everybody knows, we did leave some equipment in Quebec where our R&D center is. There's a lot of it in Thorold already there, but we're going to work out everything step by step.
Okay, good. Let's go back to Thorold. So based on Frank's talk the other day, kind of got the sense that Thorold's going to be the center of lithium, excellence, center of excellence for lithium, however you want to word it. And then you're going to kind of mimic that, and you're going to do the same thing as you're doing there in Baie-Comeau, but that's going to be more focused to the nickel side. Am I correct? Can you just clarify to everybody, because people are really confused? What is the plan for StGeorges for now? I'm not asking you to give me anything forward-looking.
So looking at what I just mentioned, 3 types of batteries quickly. I mentioned alkaline, I mentioned lithium, and I mentioned these computer batteries of nickel, cobalt, manganese, okay? Let's leave one of them aside for a second. Let's just talk about nickel, cadmium, and alkaline and lithium type batteries that are very popular. The strategy kind of came together, not because we were so brilliant and we were thinking it. You got resources and you're working on the battery. Okay, does it work for both? Yes. Wow. Okay. What we were doing for resource, we tested on the battery, and then check. So you need a center of excellence for nickel, because that's where you can't move your resource. Okay, you can move resources after you concentrate them to different locations, but you cannot move your mind. Okay, that's clear. People create where the batteries are going to be because that's where the populations are. So those are the things that we worked on. Thorold will be our showcase for the processing of all batteries. We'll do any corrections there. And then when we're going to roll out battery prep, which doesn't necessarily have to be attached to hydro or pyrometallurgy. It's battery prep. What we want to do is minimize the weights and the logistics in the future. So you're only moving black mass to the right centers of excellence. So if your center of excellence is nickel, for example, in Baie-Comeau, or attaching it to the ring of fire, I'm going to open up things. What stops you from moving it? So then that can be moved to those locations strategically. What stops you from moving the lithium that you collect across Canada and the US, black mass, to your lithium processing center? I don't care if it's spodumene and batteries or just spodumene, but it can go there. So now you've reduced logistics and transportation costs. So what we had to do was pick also locations where we can train people. So Thorold is strategic in that regard. Most people will not complain, even if you're coming from Europe, to spend some time at Niagara Falls while you're being trained to operate your plant, right? And the management of your batteries and things. And it's the same for the financial people. You want to see something, You can fly into Buffalo, you can fly into Toronto. You're not far to get there. Some people could even fly home, or most people could just drive to it. We want it to be close to the centers to attract all the synergies. So Thorold, battery prep, copy, improved if there's anything to improve. Everything always has some improvement when it's the first one. So let's do it right. Let's fix it, and then you roll out. But the plan is not one. If there's all the places we've discussed are still going to get their battery prep station. And then there's going to be processing centers for lithium and nickel. Clearly, lithium preparation, I mean, if you watch the news, just take Canada for a second. We talk about spodumene in Ontario. We talk about spodumene in Quebec. We talk about spodumene out west. Can we do something with that? Where's the right location for each of these resources? It might be next to the resource. It might be that it's moved down to one of the lakes to another location. Could all the resources of Ontario end up in Thorold? Sure. Could all the resources of Quebec end up in a site in Quebec? Absolutely. But let's do things the right way, and then you're rolling it out. What we see ourselves more as is a compliment. You have people developing resources. We're not saying don't develop your resources. Just talk to us. We're not in the game of saying you shouldn't develop your resource. Develop them. We'd love to have all of that here in North America and be completely independent of lithium needs. And that's for both sides of the border,
Mm-hmm. So on both sides of the border, are you going to be looking to attract clients from all over North America? I know there's some spodumene that's going to be coming from Africa that was talked about recently. What's the plan for that? And how do you see that relationship working?
When you take a look, let's just take something that's along the waterways, right? So you've got all the Great Lakes connected all the way to the St. Lawrence Seaway. You've got canals and stuff. You've got water that goes all the way up north with canals. Again, sure, it might be limited in winter, some of the transportation, but that's only 2 to 3 months, right? Mm-hmm. So if you take a big strategy and look at it, Thorold was kind of strategic, being near the population base and also being close to the US, high population centers along the lakes, as well as Canada's population bases. So that was one of the reasons that was chosen. And the other part of it is, if we do this right, you're not moving batteries anymore, you're moving black mass. Mm-hmm. Who's to say that the black mass along the Great Lakes for a specific type of battery doesn't end up in Thorold, and another type of battery doesn't end up in Quebec? Mm-hmm. Like overly simplistic, that is the main strategy. That doesn't mean that there isn't going to be something maybe in southern USA and the West Coast. Again, you're going to put some things in the logical places. But I think what everybody always talks about, they'll talk about lithium batteries. Good, you've got a solution. I'm not saying anything against that, but how are you going to get all the black mass there? So if you're moving all those batteries from British Columbia to Quebec, for example, does that make any sense? How much waste space do you have in your containers, air, aluminum, steel that could have been left on the West Coast, for example?
No. To that point, Enrico, you just have to look at Call to Recycle's financials in Ontario. A big part of their problem was shipping batteries all over and outside of the province. So this is why it makes sense for you guys to have an establishment in Ontario. I know another one popped up in Aurelia, but I mean, these can operate independently. You guys are really well situated in Southern Ontario. But let me go back to my question, because I don't think I articulated it properly. You guys just did a deal for some spodumene concentrates that are coming from South Africa. Some people are confused because the thing that follows StGeorges around, you're starting a lot of things all the time, and a lot of people don't know how to connect all that together. There is a bigger picture here, yeah. But how does that deal play into everything? What are you doing with that deal?
Okay, so again, when we talked about developing a spodumene process, the objective was to be able to not only handle North America, but roll out across the world to address that. When we do the work with the African Zimbabwe and all those other places that we're talking to in Africa. If the ingredients are there, we can process it there locally. If the ingredients aren't there, they can be moved to locations that we choose. Okay. But, Africa is going to be doing battery recycling too. It's inevitable. So what you're going to have is, are we going there today? No. Can we test the spodumene and give these three companies an option that is StGeorges? Yes. Do they want to build it there themselves, or do they want to ship us the concentrate? Those are all things that can be decided later, but at least they'll have the choice of doing what they want to do. And it might be a combination of, it could be you're shipping it to another location that we're working with, transforming, and then copying that back in Africa, knowing that African population is substantially bigger than Canada. Okay? So let's take a step back. When we talk about urban mining, it's population based, right? So all of it fits, and it fits with the logic of trying to minimize transportation.
It sounds like a good plan. It seems like you've got a very well thought out rollout for that side of it. Let's talk about the nickel. We talked about the hydromet. We talked about the spodumene. We talked about the patents. So you've got this process. Again, we're talking about going from step one to final product very quickly. How are you able to achieve this?
So again, the nickel, there's going to be two types of nickel. Okay, there's nickel that goes to pyrometallurgy because it has iron and things, and then some of the nickel that you'll be put up to speed on at some point of what we're doing. For example, in Manicouagan, will be quite low in iron, and those are great for what I call battery grade nickel. So that'll go straight to a hydrometallurgical approach. Okay. Could that be combined with your nickel, cobalt, manganese computer batteries? The answer is yes. The same thing could be that nickel with a lot of iron goes the ferro-nickel route. And again, that is a little different. That you can combine things like nickel-cadmium batteries with your resources. So you don't fight, I always say this and I'm repeating myself, but you put a square peg in a square hole, and you put the round peg in the round hole. Can you make a square peg fit into a round hole if you hammer it enough? Yes, but you'll cause a lot of damage doing it. So don't fight what we're given, right? Take the easiest route with each type. So it's the same philosophy as with the batteries. We have different types of batteries. A lot of people don't talk about that. They only talk about the niche they're working on, right? We're talking about the whole scheme, and it's the same thing with the resources.
Okay.
The approach we've taken, though, allows for complements with other people's resources, and that'll be pretty exciting of what's being developed.
Okay, that's fair. Now, in my experience in the market, people are always come out and saying, well, show me the hard data. Show me the hard data. And you have now contracted WSP to provide the hard data. So talk to us a little bit about how that whole process is going to work and what you hope to achieve from that.
So this is one of the things that's important. When you go and ask for grant money and things like that, it's easy to ask for it. It's easy to make a story. As a junior or a young company, we can't afford to say, oh yeah, we forgot 2 items. No, you can't do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to model it, everything. Every molecule that it goes in the air has to be an accounting for either gas cleaning or recapture and recycle. If there's a chemical that was needed, it's not forgotten. It's all in the mass balance of the modeling. Is it an exo or endothermic reaction? That only means, are you creating heat or you need heat, right? But it's so easy to miss those things. So by doing it independently, then after it's just business. So if it's just me and Mike talking, we would say, what size do we want to make? And then WSP, after that modeling, that size, each unit has to be this big. Smaller, each unit has to be this big. It doesn't matter what it is, but then it's based on pure business decisions. So we're doing that, and then we'll apply for grants in parallel. Do we believe some of the equipment we already have? Yes. But there's a big difference between that and not forgetting important items. So, we've all heard of stories about people underestimating their capex. You can go overboard and overestimate everything, but still forget an item, which is not any better. So the metallurgical simulation is one of the most important aspects of any new process. And we intend to do that just to make sure nothing was forgotten. Then we'll work with the major blue chips of the industry that are all proven off-the-shelf equipment. Do you have a better idea for the same thing? Okay, that's just business after. It's just the way you purchase. You take all the best ideas, you put them all in one package. That's your plant. But this avoids any risks for mistakes.
So there's been some knocks on previous processes, and they say, there's technologies out there that look super promising at the bench scale. And you've been very adamant that scalability is not going to be an issue. And hopefully a WSP report's going to show that. But what can you say to give people confidence that your process is scalable and there's not going to be these issues?
Yeah, so one of the reasons that that's not going to be an issue is all of this stuff, one, for the hydrometallurgy that WSP is doing for the lithium process, all the vendors are well known and off the shelf. Number two, there's no volume increase of liquids because we went with very compact. So that'll be a lot easier. And the later stages of purification, we're not using organics or resins. It's just put a few seeds with the right amount of water. I know it sounds too simple, but that's what it is. There's some scientific work up front, but at the end, that's what it is. That kind of stuff scales extremely well. In hydrometallurgy, you can scale up 10, 15, 100,000 times. In pyrometallurgy, if you were to ask me the same thing, I would tell you, it doesn't work that way. Even 4-to-1 in pyrometallurgy, you can have a risk because people underestimate how the gases flow and things like that. And that's why we hear catastrophes, okay? In hydrometallurgy, people also mix up if there's a pyrometallurgical part. Sometimes I'm going to invent something, but acid regen is more pyrometallurgy than hydrometallurgy. So scaling that up can be a disaster. Yet it was all acids, right? So you have to take a step back and understand the difference. We don't have any true pyrometallurgical challenges in our process. So you've eliminated the scalability of even 4-to-1 being a challenge. We're in that range of 10 to 15,000 times with no risk.
Wow. All right. So can you give us a quick update on where you're at with Thorold? I know people have been itching to see some pictures of progress and stuff, but this is a process. So can you kind of just give us an update where you're at?
So we've moved most of our equipment from Quebec to Thorold to get that going. For those listening in Quebec, we're going to reorder things, and once we're organized and we have everything aligned in Thorold or Ontario, and we'll be copying it in other locations. But most importantly, we're in the final stages of getting the alkaline battery part going now. So we'll be looking at hiring people and all that. The alkaline battery, the starting point, walk before you run, will be fertilizer or a complement to fertilizer. So I want to make sure it's clear. It's a complement to what farmers are already doing with nitrates, phosphates, and potassium. Okay. What a lot of people don't know is one of the impurities that we have when we say goes to fertilizer, even in lithium. For example, magnesium. Mg is another item that's a secondary item that goes to fertilizer, and then the alkaline batteries, where are the micro elements like zinc and manganese, are also necessary for crops. So if you do some research, you'll see it. What people don't tell you about is absorption. Okay, like the plant has to still be able to absorb it. So we're working also with a research center that we haven't talked about too much, but I'm going to throw it out there now, even though you didn't ask, Mike. But we set up an R&D effort to optimize absorption and the right blending and mixing by crop, which will be done in Saint-Hyacinthe, Quebec, which is more of the center of agriculture there. And they will work with different groups, which include McGill's agricultural group, and will optimize that part. That effort isn't lost because that also helps with the lithium spodumene type, be it batteries or be it spodumene, and the byproducts going to fertilizer as well.
Excellent.
So,
Now
so that's where we are with that.
But all this stuff you're talking about, the fertilizer, that kind of is a direct result of the work that you did with the government funding there. You got a little bit of a grant for that, did you not?
We did, but that was already initiated. So when we chose the starting point with an acid that complemented fertilizer, that was part of a strategic decision. Okay. And we're working with others. So there's NDAs in place. So I'm not mentioning them. That are blue chips that are already doing fertilizer in the industry. It's not for me to say if they definitely want some of the waste streams that we have, and we're sharing those at this time.
Excellent. So you're in the final stages now. You're getting excited, I'm sure, about getting this ball rolling. But now that you're going to have this facility up and running, you're going to have a place to bring people. You're going to have a WSP report in your hand that's going to allow you to, like you say, go to the blue chips. At what point are you ready to sit down with the government of Ontario, the government of Quebec, and the government of Canada and say, we have something here?
So once the metallurgical simulation is completed, make no mistake, StGeorges will be communicating with all the groups out there without me naming them, in case someone feels like I forgot them, and they might be the biggest one. But there's quite a few good groups for this type of work. Both Ontario and Quebec are supporting this activity, and we'll see who maybe wants it more. We have to take care of our shareholders. Do I feel Canada as a whole will grow into this, and the USA? Absolutely. So I don't want people to get caught up with who's first, but more that first will lead to number 2 and 3, and we intend to roll this out in a strategic way.
I'm looking forward to see how you guys develop the process, the business. It's all coming together nice. Word is there's a website coming soon, so investors will have a place to go back to. So Enrico, thanks so much. I've kept you long enough. I know we covered a few more things than you wanted to probably, but I appreciate your transparency and look forward to catching up with you again.
It was a pleasure, Mike.